This FedGov Today program is sponsored by the Association of the U.S. Army. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, recruiting change agents for the Air Force's One Team, One Fight. The Army's search for AI solutions goes downtown, and the USDA's hackathon goes all in on AI. Welcome to FedGov Today with Francis Rose. The Air Force's contracting team says it's looking for change agents. Those change agents will help the force push toward Secretary Frank Kendall's One Team, One Fight goals. Major General Alice Treviño is Deputy Assistant Secretary for Contracting in the Air Force. General, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming on the program. What is a change agent in your definition, and what are you looking for them to do?
Thank you, Francis. Thanks for asking that question. I talk about change agency a lot. And in Department of Air Force contracting and Department of Air Force acquisition at large, there is nothing constant but change. And so we want to make sure that we are empowering our folks to be able to adapt to those changes, to be agile, to be flexible, to come up with solutions, and to think differently, really. And it's teaching them how to do that as a critical thinking approach so that they can tackle the problems that we have today in great power competition.
What are the techniques that you're using to teach them that, to change the minds and change the culture, it sounds like?
Yes, so some of the techniques I talk about, really just big pictures. When someone says, I don't even know where to start, I have a mantra, and it's based on stars, and we use the STARS, stars as well, the anagram. But the S is to understand your strategic documents. So in this case, as Secretary Kendall has asked us to re-optimize for great power competition, I want them to know what the Secretary wants us to do. I want them to know what the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the Chief of Space Operations wants us to do. And then, of course, my boss, the Honorable Andrew Hunter, in the acquisition realm, I want them to know what he's asking us to do and what his focus areas are. The T is to take on the goals and initiatives that are in those strategic documents. The A is alignment, and I can talk all day about alignment, and we know what happens when you're not in alignment. And then the R is to reach out to your internal and external stakeholders, kind of like what we're doing today with our media partners, with Congress, with our sister services, the Department of Defense, but also with industry. And then the last S is to share your story.
With alignment, you said you can talk about that all day long. Why is that such an important focus? I understand the challenges when you're out of alignment in the acquisition and contracting world, but how do you get back into alignment, and how do you maintain it once you've achieved it?
So years ago, I worked for the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Secretary Shanahan, and for Secretary Mattis. And as a Marine Corps instruction, what he taught me is command and feedback. And it's what do you know, who needs to know it, and have you told them? And he had a senior military assistant who added one more thing, and he was from the Navy. And his Navy military assistant said, what do you know, who needs to know it, have you told them, and if not, what's your plan? And that's what alignment is. You have information, somebody on the team might have information, and they think you know, but if they don't share it, if they're not communicating, if they aren't purposeful and deliberate about you having that same information, you are likely leaving the room out of alignment. And so unless you're talking in the hallway, you're going to leave out of alignment, and you heard one thing and somebody else heard another, and so you're not operating in the same direction. And it's not about not having a voice, because we want dissent, we want constructive criticism, we want to have, hey, is this something else you may have thought about? But to make sure that we're moving in the same direction. And that's what the alignment piece would try to teach people how to do that.
You used that term re-optimizing for great power competition. Secretary Kendall was the first guest on FedGov Today when we debuted a year and a half or so ago now and talked about it. The DAF CIO, Ms. Goodwine, has been on the program a couple of times talking about that same concept. What does that concept mean specifically in the acquisition and contracting community, ma'am?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that question. As we are re-optimizing with big Air Force and big Space Force, in contracting, we also have to re-optimize. And big picture, it's how do we make sure that the warfighter needs are met, that we have acquisition strategies, and we're working with our program managers. In the case of Ms. Goodwine, she's working her cybersecurity requirements. So I think as our customers, our warfighters, our end users, our operators, and then the acquisition side, re-optimizing in that sense is about integration. And similar to be strategic communication, if you're not integrating, you probably are also out of alignment. And it always comes back to this alignment. And so we want to make sure that we are agile with our acquisition solutions, and contracting brings that contracting strategy to the table that feeds into that acquisition strategy. So how do we get that requirement on contract? How do we meet the government's needs? How do we make sure that that it's delivered on time as we work with our industry counterparts? All of that is how contracting is re-optimizing for great power competition.
You've talked about meeting warfighter needs. Do the techniques that you use to meet warfighter needs change as those needs change, or do the techniques stay static and you kind of reorganize, shift priorities maybe to meet the changing needs of the warfighter? So
we have a lot of tools in our toolbox, and there is not one perfect acquisition strategy for every single requirement or warfighter need. We have to tailor it to the requirement. And that is what is so exciting about contracting. It also is sometimes why you need to be a change agent, because that can also be frustrating, trying to find it's not just what's on the latest cutting edge in terms of technology, but how do we give the most agile contracting approach. It doesn't have to be about a certain contract type. It doesn't have to be a commercial contract. It doesn't have to be looking at an OTA, which is another transaction agreement. Don't pick the contract strategy without knowing your acquisition strategy and tailoring your approach to what you need. And so it's, that could come along as you're doing softwares with different increments. It could be with, at the simplest, it's how you buy your house, how you buy your car. Do you go and negotiate certain kinds of cars? You do. Some cars are like, nope, this is a set price and everybody pays it and there is no extra bonus. And you have to know your market research and the market intelligence. And so I like to give our contracting officers and our contracting specialists and our change agents the tools so that they can use their own creativity. And then we want to make sure that they are as flexible and agile as they can be.
You've spoken about 2 of the 3 items that I've seen you write about, speak about recently. You've talked about alignment, you've talked about prioritization. Tell me about simplification and how that works in the contracting space, and what it is that you're trying to simplify and who you're trying to simplify it for, ma'am.
So simplifying is for everybody, and it can be in terms of the requirement, simplifying what you need so that your offerers can give you a proposal on what you're asking for. When you overcomplicate things, it's very difficult to try to figure out exactly what it is that you want. But also interpreting strategic communications for our members. We have 9,000 mission-focused business leaders. We are teaching them all how to be change agents so that they can adapt to the world around us as quickly and as possible. Our contracting specialists, when you come in, it can take 5 to 7 years to be a warranted contracting officer. And we would love to speed that up so that that is our combat capability. When you have a warrant, when you're a contingency contracting officer, or where you're just on an installation, that is how you give the warfighter the combat capability, and that is what you bring to the table. And so keeping it simple so that they understand, again, what our priorities are, where we're getting our resources, and where we're taking their feedback and then giving them initiatives to fight down, if there's backlog or whatever is eating your lunch, on any given day. They need to know where we are going with their airport, Department of the Air Force contracting. If they can't understand that, I'm not being simple. And so I take a lot of time time to think about that. I remember what it was like 31 years ago when I came into contracting. They handed me a federal acquisition regulation and they said, read this. And it was this thick, and I didn't know where to start. I got to chapter 2. I was starting falling asleep, reading definitions, and I said to myself, if you can make this easier for the people around you and, you know, be the decoder ring for somebody who doesn't understand contracting or acquisition as well as you do, because I've been trained on it, then I'm doing my job. I'm keeping it simple, and I'm able to convey that and bring others along with me.
Ma'am, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much for your time today. You can read more about contracting in the Air Force on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the Army's search for AI solutions goes downtown. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment.
Civilian federal service follows countless paths, each road unique, each journey distinct. WEPA has covered them all since 1943, from the demands of the job and accomplishments at work, to the joys of the family and milestones at home, from inside the office to beyond the Beltway. Group Term Life Insurance from WEPA has the coverage and benefits to protect you and your loved ones, wherever Fed life leads. WEPA, for Feds, by Feds.
Welcome back. The Army's next X-Tech prize competition is going downtown. The Association of the U.S. Army will host the competition at its annual meeting at the Washington Convention Center next week. General Bob Brown, U.S. Army retired, is president and CEO of the Association of the United States Army. He's former commander of U.S. Army Pacific. Bob, welcome. It's great to see you again. What kind of a platform do you want to provide at the annual meeting for Army leaders to talk to each other, not just industry to talk to Army, people like me to talk to Army, and so on? How do you want to help them connect with each other?
Yeah, well, it's great to be here, Francis. Thanks for having me. And, you know, it's really important, the networking that goes on at the annual meeting. We'll have some 40,000 folks, 780 plus defense companies, and as you mentioned, the X-Tech, you know, incredible events like that really get the latest in technology and give the small guy as well a chance, and bring in these new ideas, and that particular ones on artificial intelligence, as I remember. So the platform is really key. We'll have 90 countries will attend the annual meeting, as well as you know, all the key leaders, and really it's an educational event as much as you mentioned, you know, industry there, and it's great to see the latest and greatest, network about it, but then also over 150 educational programs that will go on that are really effective, and talking about everything from lessons learned from Ukraine to what's going on in the Middle East, and what's happening in the Army Pacific, as you mentioned, the aggressiveness of China, et cetera. So, you know, it's great conversations, forums where they can share key info, leadership from across the country with experts from academia and industry as well.
With the emphasis on great power competition, Major General Treviño mentioned great power competition a couple of times in our conversation a moment ago. You served your last command, as I mentioned, in U.S. Army Pacific. You've seen firsthand what great power competition looks like. How do you connect what goes on in a networking opportunity, what you see in something like the X-Tech competition, to what someone is doing at the tip of the spear, what your warfighters and others are doing at the tip of the spear?
Well, that's a great question. You know, you're absolutely right. I had experience of 30 plus years dealing with China, and I would tell you that they're more aggressive now than they have ever been by far. I mean, it's unbelievable, and the thing that is very bothersome about that is that we could have an accidental conflict. You know, they're just being so incredibly aggressive. I would add Russia as well, obviously. You saw what just happened the other day in Alaska with the aircraft coming close to each other. But this aggressiveness that's occurring. So when you get the experts together, and from regions all over the world, these commanders come from all over the world, the leaders come from all over the world, the academic experts from all over. You can really dig down into what the issues are, what the challenges are. And I just found when I was serving that it would take me 2 to 3 years to travel and meet with the experts you can meet with in a couple of days at the annual meeting, or to see the latest and greatest in technology. I would always come away with 70, 80 ideas that helped us in this great power competition from industry. Because as you know, things have changed. Used to be industry would get ideas from the government, things like the internet. And so, well, now government can't keep up. The ideas come from industry. They move much more rapidly. They have tremendous ideas, and we need them to defend our country, to protect our way of life. And so this ability to network with them, as you said, is just absolutely critical. And you can see a lot, and you'll save lives from the experience.
We have about a minute left. When you talk to your colleagues who are still in uniform, do they get a sense from your discussions that the Army and the other services are getting better at incorporating those ideas and bringing them into use rapidly? Oh,
definitely. All the services created in the Army, they created the Army Futures Command, a tremendous idea. I guess it's about 6, 7 years ago now, maybe even 8. But all the services have that equivalent now, and it's really a key to getting ideas rapidly. It's still a little slower than we'd like it, but it's a heck of a lot faster than it's ever been, and it keeps getting better. Those commands link with industry, and they break down the barriers that used to be there, and that's a necessity today. Is, you know, for things like you were talking earlier on AI, you can't get those ideas unless you have industry helping you, and that's going to lead to where we have we are such a powerful, effective force. No one would be foolish enough to attack us. We'll deter any conflict, which is ultimately what we want, of course, not to have to fight. Yeah.
Bob, it's great to see you again. Thanks very much. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Great to see you, Francis. Thanks for having me.
Happy to do it. You can read more about AUSA's annual meeting on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the USDA's hackathon goes all in on AI. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment. Welcome back. The results are in from a hackathon the Agriculture Department and Colorado State University produced. That collaboration may be a boost for small businesses. Christopher Alvarez is Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at USDA. Chris, welcome. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining. What did you learn from that hackathon, and how does the hackathon program at USDA help you learn about better ways to serve people?
Yeah, we learned a lot of things from that program. I think for USDA, we learned about some opportunities to apply advanced analytics, artificial intelligence to some of the programs that we offer as a USDA department. So it really helped us learn about how we could deliver services more efficiently, more effectively. We also, I think, learned a lot about what it takes to engage with universities. We worked a lot at Colorado State University with their computer science department, but in the process, really were able to connect with other divisions, including their meat sciences division, and brought two parts of academic institution together to talk about a common problem, which is the use of AI in agriculture. It's something that's oftentimes not well understood or recognized.
What are some of the use cases that you're seeing across the department? What are people coming to you and asking, maybe, is this a potential use for artificial intelligence?
Yeah. A couple of things. One, on our USDA website, we have an inventory of our AI use cases that we use today. And so you can go to usda.gov and search for our AI inventory and see about close to 40 use cases that we have in use today across USDA. So in a lot of ways, it's not a new technology that we're applying to different programs. But we are getting a lot of requests, a lot of interest in the latest AI tools, ChatGPT and generative AI. There's a lot of opportunity to now start to apply some of these within our organization to help with processing large volumes of information, generating content, drafting information. So we're starting to look into those capabilities, and we're seeing some pretty strong demand within the department.
Has the genesis of Gen AI changed the way that you think about AI, changed the way that you think about governance, about any of that?
It has. I think with the emergence of ChatGPT and tools similar to that, it really is putting what has traditionally been a pretty advanced technology in the hands of a lot of non-technical folks. And I think that really opens up a lot of opportunities, creates a lot of use cases where we could apply AI very rapidly, very efficiently, and put it in the hands of folks who aren't programmers and they aren't statisticians, but are able to use some of these tools. So I think that's really the value that we see coming with these tools and way it's transforming some of USDA.
The AI community across government is talking a lot about compliance with OMB M2410. Yes. You've got your plan for that out. What does that look like, and did that require you to go in a different direction than you already were strategically regarding AI at USDA?
It has been a whirlwind of activity related to AI, particularly when it comes to governance and responsible adoption and innovation. Yes, we have been tracking a lot of the requirements that USDA has to deliver on with respect to that OMB memo, also Executive Order 14110, which has to do with trustworthy AI adoption. USDA had to do a number of things. We had to put out some guidance, particularly with state and local and tribal organizations that administer public benefits on behalf of USDA. We had to name a chief AI officer and stand up a council, and so we have done that, and we now have some AI governance in place. We still have some things to do. We are pretty far along with our AI strategy. We're expecting to have that ready for public release later this calendar year, and also working to update our AI inventory, which will be probably in the December timeframe. You
wrote recently, your top priorities are workforce development, pursuing Gen AI use cases, and increasing data management maturity. We've talked about number 2, the AI use cases. What are you doing workforce development-wise to make sure that not just the people that work for you, but the people all across that you referred to earlier in this conversation are ready to use AI and ready to use it in a way that suits the goals of the department? Yeah, I think one thing that's really important for me to recognize is that we're a large department, close to 100,000 employees. Not everyone is at the same level of understanding and comfort with using artificial intelligence. And so education is going to be really key to being able to deploy these tools, to roll them out to the workforce, and have them really understand what's being put in their hands and have a feeling that they're comfortable using these. So we're working on trainings. We're developing some foundations of AI that help our workforce understand what is AI, what can it do, what are some of the pitfalls that you might fall into when you're using it, particularly around the accuracy of information and the importance of really verifying what these AI tools are giving back when you're asking for information. Mm-hmm. So training is a really key component. We have a really engaged scientific workforce that's done a lot of technical training, but I think our folks who are out administering programs and out in the field and servicing the American citizens also need to develop that level of knowledge and understanding. On that third pillar, increasing data management maturity, where do you think you are on that spectrum, and what do you want to do to get you to a more mature level? Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we're seeing with artificial intelligence is that data is really important to having an effective implementation of AI. And so we're really focusing on, and part of my role as also the Chief Data Officer, is to ensure our data is well managed, high quality, and usable. In the past, that was focused mostly on usable by our workforce, consumable by the public. Now we're starting to think about, is it usable by artificial intelligence? Mm-hmm. Some of the pilot projects that we're doing are really revealing what it takes to make data AI ready. We're still finding a lot of the effort involved in implementing an AI solution requires some data cleaning, some data processing. And so that's really helping us understand that data is still a very central requirement to adopting AI. We do have a lot to do with our maturity. I think we have areas where we're really strong, and we have areas that we need to improve on. And so we have a really strong workforce. We have within USDA Assistant Chief Data Officers that lead all of our mission areas within USDA and are helping us as part of a
a CDO council to really tackle some of those data challenges.
We have about a minute left. How will you judge success in all of these areas? How will you determine that you're on the right path, or maybe you need to pivot?
Yeah, I think we measure success in a couple of different ways. I mean, we're really looking for AI that's going to generate value or return on investment of some kind to USDA. That can mean a couple of things. It could mean easing workloads so that our workforce is able to deliver on the mission, able to engage more with customers and beneficiaries of USDA programs. It could also mean financial savings. So if we're able to do things like modernize a legacy application more efficiently and do that at a lower cost, we're able to I think, improve our overall IT maturity and accelerate in that way. So, budgets are very tight, hiring is very tight, workloads on government workforce are pretty heavy. I think those are real opportunities to apply AI to do more with what we've got today.
Chris, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you.
You can read more about AI at USDA on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. James Bird of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency is working at the intersection of cyber and privacy. You'll meet him and learn about his work and how those two concepts sync up on the new FedGov Today podcast. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your shows, and always on demand at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today TV continues in a moment.
Sure. So as we've seen over the last few years, generative AI has really kind of taken the world by storm. So everybody's familiar with ChatGPT. Everyone is trying at this point to figure out how do they integrate those generative AI capabilities into their infrastructure. So what we're seeing across defense, intelligence, commercial, civil, healthcare is how do we advance the kinds of things that Mark was just talking about? How do we do object detection, detection in signals, in audio, so on? Make those better, but then also leverage these generative AI techniques to then make sense of them so that we're, in addition to detecting what is in an image, we'd like to know why it's in there. Can we use generative AI to mine knowledge graphs that give contextual information to what's in there? Can we mine open source media to understand news reporting of why something's in there, what's happening? So how can we make higher level sense out of all of the information that we can then use those sort of lower level machine learning and computer vision algorithms to detect?
Welcome back. In today's event spotlight, General Brown told you a few minutes ago about the Association of the U.S. Army's annual meeting next Monday through Wednesday, October 14th through 16th at the Washington Convention Center. The theme is Transforming for a Complex World, and now from General Brown, top leaders from the Army and DoD will be there, along with more than 700 exhibits and representatives from armies around the world. You can read more about it and sign up at fedgovtoday.com/events. FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10:30. The Comptroller of the Navy, Russell Rumbaugh, has an audit success to share, and Matt Passos, the Chief AI Officer at the Commerce Department, is here too. I'm Francis Rose. I'll see you next Sunday. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.